All right, this couple also want to select for height and gender. They already have 3 daughters and they'd like a boy, and they'd like that boy to be tall because the father is short and he doesn't want his child picked on like he used to be. Mark, do you think they should be allowed to do this?
No way.
And yet you think they should be allowed to select out the gene for Friedreich's ataxia?
Friedreich's ataxia is a disease. Being short isn't an illness.
But someone who's short can suffer from people picking on them.
But that's society's problem. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being short, but sometimes society thinks there is. Society's got to change and stop giving people a hard time for being short or fat or black or gay or whatever.
Well, try telling that to the individual who's on the receiving end of this kind of prejudice and hatred. I mean, we're not going to change the world, but with genetics we can change individuals. We can help them to avoid unnecessary suffering.
This is just wrong. All the energies that were once directed outwards towards changing society, striving for a better world, are now encouraged inwards to the creation of perfect human beings, the selfish pursuit of youth to me and mine.
Maybe, but whether we like it or not, the technology is here and the technology is here to stay. And the decisions need to be made.
But
it's up to us to make sure that the right people are making those decisions. Which brings me back to my main point. The people with the best interests at heart should make the decisions. And in this case, that's the parents.
yeah, but becoming a parent should be more than just another consumer choice. It's not what your child can do for you, how to make you more whole, your life more complete. It's about what you can do for your child.
I couldn't agree more. I certainly wouldn't select out for height, and I don't think any other parent would unless they had a damn good reason.
Look, parents of special and disabled children say the same thing to us time and again, and that is that they didn't know what love was until their child was born. They didn't realize how selfish and empty their lives were until they found that love.
Yes, and for some years now, the parents of children with Down syndrome have had the opportunity to take advantage of plastic surgery to make their children appear more normal, to allow them an easier time in life. Now, I'm not a parent of a child with Down syndrome, so I'm not making that decision. It's not up to me. It's up to them, and some of them do, some of them don't. It's their choice. I believe that all good parents, all people, given the informed choice, will make the best decision. That's human nature.
Over to you, Professor Byrne.
Yes, Ryan telling us that individual choice doesn't threaten society. I'm slightly troubled by Jennifer's argument on the love of a disabled child. There's no doubt that that's true, but we see many of thousands of people in our clinics whose lives have been torn apart by disability, whose marriages have been wrecked by it. So I think there are 2 sides to that coin. Listening to them talk, it's a little like listening to the 2 ends of an extreme argument. When my forebears in the Northeast invented railway trains, they used to argue at the time that maybe someone should walk in front with a red lantern in case they went too quickly. And then only a few decades later, people were arguing that they should be allowed to drive as fast as they liked on the motorways, and not recognising that that could be a threat to society. So I think when you actually think about it, we've always found a middle way. We've recognised the strength of both arguments, and these are strong arguments, but then said, where do we find what's right, what's the balance between choice and society's needs? When I was a young doctor, we began to be able to very easily keep people alive who had died. We put them on ventilators and dialysis machines, and we had to have committees and decide that we needed a definition of brain death. And so we chose the definition, and we've stuck to it ever since, and people are very used to that concept now. But had you told people 100 years ago about that, they'd have found it quite threatening and difficult. I mean, height is a very good example. There isn't a short and normal people. There's a complete gradation. And it's absolutely right that some short people live entirely fulfilled lives. But if you're only 3 feet 6 inches tall, then that's a really quite significant impairment, and many would see it as a severe disability and would not want their child to have the same problem. So we need to try and find that balance. When does an impairment become a sufficiently severe disability to justify these considerable interventions? And I think if we get it right, then we can give people a good life and reduce suffering. But if we get it wrong, then even the most minor impairment could become socially unacceptable. And then I think we'll live in a very poor society.
And that's all we have time for today. Thank you, Mark and Jennifer and Ryan, and thank you, Professor Byrne, for an extremely provocative discussion.